Talkin Bama with Big C, show number 5. I'm your host, Colin Big C McGuire. Last week, Alabama had an open date, but on September the 20th, Alabama opened up its SEC schedule against the Florida Gators in Tuscaloosa. Alabama started off on its first play with a bang by scoring on an 87-yard pass from Blake Sims to Kenyon Drake. Then Alabama had back-to-back turnovers, which Florida took advantage of to go up 14-7. Then Alabama tied up the score on a 79-yard pass from Blake Sims to Amari Cooper to tie up the game, and then went up 21-14 at the half. The third quarter, Alabama put 2 touchdowns on the board to go up 35-21, and then scored another touchdown in the fourth quarter to go winning away 42-21. Quarterback Blake Sims had a career day, completing 23 of 33 passes, 1 interception, but he had 4 touchdown passes for 445 yards, the second most in Alabama football history. Derrick Henry, the running back, ran the ball 20 times for 111 yards and 1 touchdown, and Amari Cooper caught 10 passes for 201 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he was named the Offensive Player of the Week for the Florida game there. Also, the Alabama defense held Florida to 200 yards total offense. The only negative Alabama had was the 4 turnovers and 8 penalties for 80 yards. And those are situations that can be corrected, and you can bet your bottom dollar that Coach Nick Saban will be working on that this past week coming up for the Ole Miss game, because they cannot afford to do that when they play the Ole Miss Rebels in Oxford this week. Alabama periodically played Ole Miss over the years. In the 1960s, they played 4 years in a row, or 5 years in a row, from 65 to 69 for a 4-1 record, and Alabama won 2 of those games by 1 point. But beginning in 1992, with the SEC going into division play, and with Alabama and Ole Miss both being in the Western Division, they played each other every year. Since 1993, Alabama has played in Oxford every odd year, and then 2 years ago they didn't. But anyway, Alabama's record against Ole Miss in Oxford since 1993 is 8-2. And the 2 times Alabama lost to Ole Miss was when Eli Manning was the quarterback for Ole Miss. And this year they do not have a Manning on the team. So I feel real good about Alabama's chances in Oxford, even though it will be a tough ball game. Today's trivia question. Name the Alabama football player who kicked 4 field goals against Ole Miss in the 1964 Sugar Bowl. I recently interviewed quarterback Scott Hunter, the star of the 1969 Alabama-Ole Miss game in the shootout with Archie Manning, which was a primetime TV classic. And you'll be able to hear that after these messages. We got us a guest on here today, and it's Scott Hunter, who played at Alabama from 1968 to 70, who was the starting quarterback during that time frame.
Good morning, Big C. How's everything up there?
It's nice, and it's a pretty day. Scott, I guess since that night in October '69, Alabama was 2-0, and Ole Miss got upset by Kentucky 10-9 the week before, and I know that they were sort of holding back. But I looked at the scoring, Alabama scored 80 points going in that game. Y'all beat Virginia Tech by 17-13 and then beat Southern Miss 63-13, and Ole Miss had a total of 29. So going into the game, y'all were averaging 40 a game, and they were only averaging 18. And then yardage, you were averaging right at a little over 400 and giving up right at 300. Did you expect this game to have this many yards gained and points scored?
Oh, no, certainly not. Looking at the film of the previous week's Kentucky game, Ole Miss just didn't play very well at all. And I had no idea that Archie Manning would explode like that against us and put 550 yards up and all that he put up there. Who could even guess that?
No player going into that until that night had never thrown for 300 or more yards in a game or rushed for 100 or more until that night. And also, do you remember that y'all had a late start because of the Lawrence Welk show? Do you remember that?
Yes, the Lawrence Welk at that time was a big star on TV, and he had a Saturday night show. My mother watched it Dan Pritchard, she never missed it. And he was live from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Central Time, and he had a non-preemption clause in his contract. ABC asked him to preempt. He said, I'm not preempting. That game didn't really kick off until 8:20 or 8:25ish or so, and the thing lasted long after midnight.
There was a couple of things that helped Alabama win. Like Alabama held Ole Miss. They did not score a touchdown in the second quarter. And y'all scored. Y'all scored in every quarter. And then Ole Miss, one thing that changed the complexion of the game was after their third touchdown, they missed the extra point. Then after that, they had to go for two. And I guess did Coach Bryant decided, well, y'all do the same thing?
Yeah, we had to do the same thing. Every time you scored, you had that 6-point calculation there, so you had to go for two. So both of us started going for two after that. I don't think anybody ever made a 2-point play. How you figure that with all that offense, neither one of us could make a 2-point play.
Another stat that really was big was no turnovers for Alabama, and they had 2 turnovers that night.
Yeah, in a game like that, as you know, Big C, and both teams can be really good on offense, but if somebody has a turnover, even one turnover, and you take away 80 yards of offense, in my mind, I always take away 80 yards of offense for a turnover, and then and it's the game turns around, too.
That night, when y'all played them, said that there was 1 NCAA record and 9 SEC records were set that night. Now, Archie had an individual record of 540 yards of total offense, and then I decided to go ahead and look up Johnny Manziel, and he was the one that it took him 43 years later to break it, but he did it twice in 2012. Now, let me ask you this. Now, you watched Archie in person, and you've seen Manziel on TV. How would those two guys compare? Because I guess I'm old still. I still think Archie's the best one I ever seen.
Well, Archie Manning is probably the best athlete at quarterback at that time I'd ever seen. Archie was 6'3", a little taller than I am, 6'2", he's 6'3". Archie was fast. You know, he had a long stride, loping.
Yeah.
Could throw the ball on the run.
Yeah.
Just fantastic. Now, Manziel was pretty good. You know, he's pretty hard to cage up, and throws a good ball. But if I had to draft the two guys, if you're asking which one would I want on my team, based on Archie being 6'3" and having the speed and the ability he had, I'd have to take him over a 5'10", 5'11", maybe Manziel makes 6 foot, I don't know, but I'd have to take a 6'3" guy over a 6 foot guy.
Well, go ahead and tell the folks, we're almost out of time. Go ahead and tell them what you're doing these days, and I really appreciate this. This is really good.
Well, you know, of course, graduated from Alabama with a degree in finance, and that type of business has always been in the back of my mind to be in. So after I finished my TV career down here, joined Raymond James Financial Services, an outstanding outfit out of St. Petersburg. It reminds me of playing in Alabama and playing for the Green Bay Packers. It's such a great organization. And so now I'm just managing money and trying to keep my clients happy.
What I'm going to do now is we're going to talk about the matchups between Alabama and Ole Miss, and what we're going to do is, like we always do each week, is Coach Gene Stallings' method of picking a winner, and this is how it works. Alabama is number 24 in rushing offense, while Ole Miss is number 80. Alabama's rushing defense is number 3, and Ole Miss is number 63. Now, here's where the difference between Alabama and Ole Miss is. In turnover margin, Ole Miss is number 12, while Alabama is 104 in turnover margin. It's going to be a tough game in Oxford, but my prediction is Alabama 28, Ole Miss 17. If they're equal on turnover margin, then Alabama will definitely win the game. But I see Alabama winning 28-17 on October the 4th on CBS TV. Earlier, I asked the trivia question. The trivia question is, who was the Alabama kicker who kicked 4 field goals against Ole Miss in the 1964 Sugar Bowl? The answer is Tim Davis, with field goals of 31, 46, 22, and 48 yards. And he was the first place kicker to be named the most valuable player in a bowl game. We have reached the end of our show, and I want to thank Scott Hunter for being our guest on this show. I also want to let you know about Talkin Bama with Big C on Facebook. Like us there. I also want to let you know that I have a show called Talking Sports with Big C at www.JockJive.com, Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time. If you miss the show, you can go and archive the show anytime you want to. So right now, we'll be back next week for the Alabama-Arkansas game. But right now, I got one other word to say before we go. Roll, Tide, roll!